looks on most calculations really, really close, or maybe on this poll in Trump's favour. It's got a lot of people thinking and quite a few worrying.
Yeah, it has, although I think it's worth saying that it's also had a fair share of critics of this poll, suggesting it's an outlier, that it doesn't conform to any of the other polls.
The Post wrote that it was an outlier.
Yeah, exactly. And questioning the kind of, the substance behind this poll and why it would show such a rogue result, if you like. But, let's step back from the poll itself and let's think about Donald Trump. I mean, I think President Biden does have an issue here. There's been questions about his age, about his ability to do his job, about whether or not he really is competent. And although the two men aren't actually that different in age, really when it comes down to it, and particularly when you reference politics in this country, I think there is a sense, and a growing one, of President Biden just not being necessarily as on top of things as people maybe would like, and that presents a problem. And, there have always been analysts who've suggested that Donald Trump could well be quite popular, a second time around, as hard as we may find that to believe here in this country.
And the polls say that if it was up to, I guess, the weight of American opinion, they'd have neither of them. But as it stands, they're going to have both of them up against each other. I mean, quick word with you, George. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, it's going to be such a momentous election, isn't it?
Well, it is. I mean, we've discussed this before, and the possibility of this election in the United States could be happening at the same time as the election in the UK, and both will be dramatic. But the American one, I think most of us would agree, will grip the world's attention in a way that few elections will have done, if it's indeed Trump versus Biden. As Kate was saying, this poll, the Washington Post ABC poll, is the second outlier poll which they've produced, and pollsters are questioning the accuracy of this and suggesting that actually most polls show the two of them neck and neck. But I mean, leaving that aside, it's plainly going to be much closer than anyone on this side of the Atlantic could possibly countenance, between an incumbent president versus someone who's facing multiple criminal charges. But it's plainly going to be close. And the fact that you've got these polls putting Trump ahead will just feed the momentum that he's gained from these various cases being brought against him by the anti-Trump liberal judicial establishment in the United States.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, this is a perfect moment to get a really right up-to-date expert analysis of what's going on in those American polls. So let's welcome Dritan Nesho, Chief Executive and Lead Pollster of HarrisX, the polling company. Hello, Dritan.
Hello, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here, Dritan. So give me your latest thinking on the polls over there. How do you read them, especially in the light of these, quite startling polls over the weekend?
So Joe Biden had a bad week last week. He was targeted with an impeachment inquiry by Republicans in Congress. His son was indicted by the special counsel, and he also neglected to show up in any of the 9/11 memorial places as he was coming back from Asia, which was really an unforced error that did not go unnoticed with the American public. So all this, in addition to the fact that there's real concerns about his age, this came together and was picked up by a series of polls that essentially showed the trends switching from a statistical tie between Biden and Trump, which is where they were for most of August in polling, to several polls now showing Trump to be ahead of Biden. Now, is Trump 10 points ahead of Biden? No. And the Washington Post ABC poll, by their own acknowledgement, was an outlier. There were some oddities in the poll, like Trump winning the youth vote, the 18 to 29-year-old vote, by a full 20 points, and also winning minorities by 42 points, which are not in line with what the other polls are showing. Nevertheless, Trump is an incredibly competitive candidate. And what's unique about this potential matchup in American politics is that essentially you have two incumbent presidents running against one another, which hasn't happened for a very long time in American politics. And what's really concerning for Biden is his approval numbers compared to the approval numbers for Trump. In that Washington Post ABC poll, they asked, what is your approval of the job that former President Trump did? and 48% that they said that they approved of him, which is higher than when he left office. And Biden's own approval had collapsed to the high 30s. So that's not a good augur, right? And the Biden team has to do something to start changing the trend and the inclination. But by and large, the truth is somewhere closer to, a statistical tie, right?
Right.
And it goes Trump plus a few points, sometimes Biden plus a few points another time.
Right. I mean, when you look at how, through a lens of conventional political analysis, when you look at these two men, they are so far apart in every conceivable way, apart from, I guess, their age. It's hard to imagine there is such a thing as a floating voter in America when you look at both of those two possibilities. To the extent that there is a floating voter, the independents who aren't registered to either the Democrats or the Republican Party, or who are capable of being won over from one side to the other, Dritan, how big is that constituency? How many Americans are there? How many of those that hold the key to the White House essentially between them?
So independents in the United States are roughly around 40% of the electorate. And the current system forces a choice on independents, either the presumptive nominee of the Democrats or the presumptive nominee of the Republicans or the eventual nominees. The center is quite large in the United States. And this is why you see some initiatives like the No Labels initiative picking up a lot of steam right now. And their whole idea is that they want to list a potential unity ticket, a Republican and a Democrat, independent-minded Democrat and independent-minded Republican in all 50 states. So that if such a ticket emerges that vouches for the center, voters have the ability to vote for it and have the ability to vote for a third choice. And what we see consistently in the polling is that 70% of Americans, 70, are not happy with a presumptive matchup, same as it was the last time around, meaning Biden versus Trump, Trump versus Biden. They think that the country can do better. They want fresher choices, but the parties are hoisting that choice upon them. And it's an interesting moment in American politics because either you could see the emergence of a very strong third party ticket, stronger even than Ross Perot was in 1992, or you might potentially have an election that is a very low turnout election because voters are dissatisfied with the choices that are being offered to them.
Yeah.